Well, in the US and Canada alone, 1 in 8 adults have used the weight loss drug Ozempic, but it has been cost prohibitive for many, with a retail price as high as $1,000 per month. However, last month, late in May, Canada became the first G7 country to approve a generic prescription of the injection, which is administered monthly, like I said, and set to hit pharmacy shelves very shortly. Joining us now from Atlanta is Dr. Julian Kavanaugh, assistant professor of neurology at Emory University School of Medicine, and also a medical correspondent for CBC Radio Canada. Thank you for being here.
Good afternoon.
So first, give us a breakdown. We know that this is a huge trend, a huge wave. Ozempic, other medications like this, we're used to being used to treat diabetes too. And with so many regulatory agencies, how has it been able to just be administered for people that want to lose weight all of a sudden, which has been decades, centuries of people trying to find a quick pill?
Yeah, that's because Ozempic is not a diabetes drug. It's a wonder neuro drug that modulates the body's ability to experience fullness, satiety, and hunger, desire for food. We are discovering as we are progressing in more and more patients being placed on these drugs, it actually has other effects on the brain, on the reward system in particular. And so that's the reason why we have this effect of losing weight, because people have a much easier time controlling their hunger, their satiety, and their ability to lose weight, which is directly connected to diabetes. So that's why it's approved mostly for patients with diabetes and obesity, but the indications will likely expand over the next few years.
But with that said, given that it is something not a lot of people heard about, and now it seems the whole world suddenly looks slimmer and they're taking it, but we don't really know what the side effects are. I mean, is it possible that things can happen down the line, and especially because you have to continue with it regularly?
You have to continue with it regularly. It seems that a lot of the positive effects, meaning weight loss on this drug, seem to not really be sustained once patients stop these drugs, which raises many, many questions. As more and more people are placed on these drugs, we start seeing very rare side effects that were not necessarily described in the clinical trials, because this is the kind of data that can only appear when you have millions of patients on the drug. We have cases of optic neuritis on it, which I see here regularly. And what we are going to really study more in the future is the potential psychiatric side effects. Mm-hmm. It is something to be said about the change that happened to somebody's brain when you have this reward system that is changed. Very positive side effect when people stop drinking alcohol or having gambling behavior. But sometimes we can see that some of the drives that people experience to go through life might sometimes be altered by these drugs. This is empirical data so far, but we're going to need more studies to understand it better.
Also, we're talking about the fact, like you said, it works in a neurology kind of way, but how do you make decisions as to who you could prescribe it to? Many people with mental illnesses on antidepressants, other types of medications, do they know how they affect one another? And of course, everybody's brain chemistry is different.
Yeah, and this is really an era of personalized medicine where maybe in the future we will have some biological markers to decide who is the best candidate for these drugs. In most countries, the approval process is really narrow. In Israel, if I'm not mistaken, it is really restricted to people who do have diabetes and need to lose weight. The indications are looser in some other countries. Some countries leave more discretion to their physician to make those decisions. But you're entirely right. We need more data, and there is something to be said about a society where a large portion of the population would be on one of these drugs and what it would do to the overall system and the overall psyche of the population.
So now let's get to the cost. Clearly, it's not something that everybody could afford, but what makes Canada unique that it's able to all of a sudden offer a generic? Is it a patent thing?
Well, Emily, we all failed one day to send the paperwork or to pay the fee on time. And it seems that the pharmaceutical that's making Ozempic in Canada forgot to pay the fee, the that was going with the patent to keep the patent closed in Canada. So they lost the patent this way in a very administrative way. And this coincides also with a moment when the data, the clinical trial data, was also made public. So what this all means is that now in Canada, you have generic manufacturers who are able not only to make the drug, but to substantiate the fact that the drug is efficacious and safe by the data that the other pharmaceuticals have gathered in the past. So they don't need to replicate the studies to be able to go on the market. So that is the reason why these generic manufacturers are able to make the generic Ozempic in Canada at a much lower cost. But this is a little bit of a fluke in the system, and especially for us Americans, it's not going to come across the border anytime soon.
All right. Thank you. Very, very interesting. Thank you, Dr. Julian Kavanaugh.
Thanks for having me.